You're back. I'm glad you climbed the stairs again. The steps are a bit slick tonight with the midnight dew, but the air up here is perfectly still. It feels different than last time, clearer somehow. I haven't moved from this stool since the sun dipped below the tree line. I just watched the shadows stretch across the valleys, swallowing up the farms and the roads until everything became that uniform, ink-like dark. Look out the copper frame. It hasn't budged. That tiny amber ember is sitting exactly where we left it, right on the precipice of the jagged peak. If anything, the blue tint around its edges has grown a fraction sharper, like a cold flame cutting through the velvet background of the sky. I spent the twilight hours pulling down the iron-bound ledger from the very top shelf, the one covered in dry wolf skin that usually gives me a sneezing fit. It's a record of atmospheric anomalies from the reign of the Third Solar Dynasty. It's nearly 500 years old. The pages are so brittle, they feel like dried autumn leaves under my fingertips, almost translucent if you hold them up to the lantern. I found an entry from an old scribe named Orestes. He wasn't even an astronomer. He was just a night watchman who kept tabs on the fuel levels for the beacon fires, but he kept a personal diary in the back of the ledger, mostly complaining about the quality of the firewood and the dampness of his boots. But then, right around the winter solstice of his 42nd year on the wall, his entries completely changed. The handwriting shifted from a casual, sloppy cursive to these incredibly precise, geometric block letters. He stopped talking about his daily chores entirely. Instead, he drew 3 concentric circles across the page and right in the center. He pressed his thumb into a pool of wet gold ink, leaving a permanent, textured print on the vellum. Beside it, he wrote a single sentence. The eye in the mountain has unblinked, and it demands a witness. He used that exact phrase, unblinked. It's a strange way to describe a star appearing, don't you think? It implies the light was always there, just hidden behind an invisible eyelid made of ether and time, waiting for the right configuration of the world to finally show itself to us. I checked the dates he recorded. The night that gold thumbprint dried was the exact same night the great library in the southern province burned down. The official histories say it was caused by an overturned oil lamp in the translation cellar. But Orestes' notes suggest something else entirely. He claimed that the sky didn't drop rain that night. It dropped a heavy, metallic silence that made everyone's ears ring until the steeples began to hum. I can't help but think about how much we rely on the consistency of the dark. We map our lives, our shipping routes, our harvest calendars on the absolute certainty that the stars will repeat their paths without variation. It's the ultimate security blanket. We accept that the earth beneath our feet might shake, or that kingdoms will crumble, but we expect the vault above us to remain an unmoving monument. When something new arrives, something that doesn't fit to the old geometric equations, it breaks a hidden rule. It forces us to admit that we are just passengers on a very small, very fragile raft, floating through an ocean that doesn't care about our coordinate lines. I've been mixing a new batch of ink tonight, just to pass the time while the telescope tracks the outer rim of the nebula. I used pulverized slate from the riverbed and a few drops of rosemary oil. It's an old trick my mentor taught me to keep the spiders away from the drying parchment. They hate the scent of rosemary. The aroma is drifting up from the ceramic well right now. It blends with the smell of the cold stone walls and the hot oil in the lantern brackets. It's a very grounding scent. It keeps my thoughts from spinning out into the void along with the planets. I often wonder what happened to Orestes after he made that mark in the book. There are no more entries after that solstice. The ledger just cuts off into blank pages. His name isn't listed in the burial records of the lower parish, and he didn't receive a pension from the crown. It's as if he simply walked off the battlements one morning and walked right out of the story entirely. Maybe he realized that once you see something that massive, something that breaks the established geometry of your world, you can't just go back to checking the firewood levels and complaining about damp boots. Your old life becomes too small a container to hold what your eyes have taken in. Look closely at the desk here. See how the light from the window falls across the velvet charts. The gold thread is catching that faint amber glow from the mountain. It's creating a secondary shadow across the constellations, creating new lines that the original weaver never intended. If you follow this new shadow path, it bypasses the northern crown entirely and cuts straight through the empty space we talked about last time, the dead zone, where the pendulum sound echoes through the acoustic tubes. It's almost as if the amber light is acting like a beacon, illuminating a hidden highway that was always there, just waiting for a specific illumination to make it visible to the human eye. I haven't put my ear back to the telescope brass tonight. To be honest with you, I'm a bit afraid of what I might hear. What if that slow, rhythmic pulse is quickened? What if it's no longer skipping a beat every 3 moon cycles, but is starting to match the frantic pace of a heart that is waking up from a very long, very deep slumber? There's a heavy fog rolling in from the eastern marshes now. It's crawling up the sides of the mountain like a slow-moving tide, swallowing the pine forests and the lower foothills. In a few minutes, it will probably reach the watchtower window and blur the whole sky into a thick, milky gray. But even through the mist, I can tell that amber spark will still be burning. Some lights are too stubborn to be put out by a little bit of earthy vapor. We think we are the ones doing the exploring, don't we? We build the towers, we grind the glass, we write the heavy books, and we convince ourselves that we are the masters of discovery. But sitting here with you, in the freezing quiet, looking at that single unmoving eye above the crags, I'm starting to suspect that we've got it completely backward. We aren't the scholars looking out into the dark. We are the specimens being kept under observation. Tell me, if that light out there has been waiting 500 years for someone to look back at it, do you think it's looking at the tower? Or is it looking at you? Till next time.